morning to all and welcome to Milipol and HCFDC talk show. So we start our first talk show in English today. So I first apologize for my English French. I'm sorry, and I will be the only talk animating in English today because my friend Dan Casesta, who is an English native speaker, will take the relay on this afternoon. So I apologize for my English to all English native listeners. So our first talk in English is on the issue of mass casualties, issues and solutions. So we are happy to welcome four specialists of these topics today. From my right side, Dr. Luc Ronqui, who is medical doctor, anesthesiologist, and General Secretary of the French Society for Disaster Medicine. And we will talk with him a lot about the concept, doctrine, and how we can approach these problems of mass casualties. Our second speakers will be the General Serge Garrigue, with the former Chief of Staff of Paris Defense Zone, who has known a lot of issues regarding different incidents of large scale. So he will tell us about the needs of the, I would say, the common level structure in this case of mass casualties situations. And we will have two industrial manufacturers. First, Mr. Sander Weufbrein, Director of Civilian Market of Los Bergers, will tell us what Los Bergers is doing in this field, as well as Mr. Nicolas Delarue-Ducamp, who is General Secretary of Renault Trucks Defense, a large company very well known on mobility in all fields. So we are going to speak of this issue. Just a few reminders before. First of all, that you can follow us and react on Twitter. So you will see the talk show Milipol hashtag, where you can send us some questions on some information you would like, or some reactions. And we are going to speak about different aspects of mass casualties situations. The first one will be the user needs. What is new in this environment of incidents? How we can better take care of the casualties, and how we can improve these critical situations. And secondly, we will speak about the state of the market. Who is going to ask what? Is the market driver by the I would say the day-to-day operations, or do we have a specific market for exceptional situations? We'll speak about that. And we will speak as well about new technologies approaching that reach every aspect of our solutions today. First of all, I would like to ask to Dr. Ronqui, we have different approach in the world of mass casualty. First in developed countries, and also in more less developed countries, I would say. So how we can approach? We see, for instance, in the last few days and almost 10 days now, the situation in Philippines, it's fully different. So what could be a situation in the developed countries like Paris or in the US regarding the taking care of mass casualty by the numbers of medical support that you can bring on a scene. So could you tell us a few words about how we can approach this situation of mass casualties?
Yeah, that's a very important issue. You have two basically different situations among very industrialized and dense countries and third world countries. Regarding Philippines, the big issue to date is the lack of communications between telecommunications, and mainly between physical communications. I mean, what we can do to bring food, to bring water, and to bring medical supply on site. And on the opposite, in an industrialized country with huge telecommunications and airborne support, it will be a lot easier.
Alors, when you speak about a situation like Philippines, do you think that we need to bring hospitals, mobile hospital, we need to bring all the medical chain on site, or do we have to take the people from the site to bring them back to medical, I would say, installations?
These are the two concepts, and I believe they are complementary rather than opposite. It depends on the local situation. For example, you won't stay on the site should a replica occur, for example, earthquakes. The typhoon was forecasted with a second one, which was planned to happen 3 or 4 days later. It didn't happily happen, so you can leave people, leave hospital infrastructures on site. There is no predefined tactic. It depends on the weather forecast, on the local situations regarding should you be in a mountain region or in a flat region on an island which could be devoted to a tsunami and so on. So the main issue is to send at first people devoted to planning in order to appreciate the local situation, to anticipate the number and the type of casualties, and then to propose an organization. Sometimes it's better to stay on the field what we can stay and play. On the other hand, should you have a major threat, it's better to scoop and run. I mean, go away and treat on the backside.
So what you explained to us regarding Philippine or large-scale disasters, you will find the same way in a concept in a urban area. Do we bring a triage close to the incident part, or do we bring the like in the US mostly the concept of scoop and run and bring casualties to the hospital?
In an urban area, it will depend on the number of casualties. It's a present paradox that in some big cities there is an overflow of medical doctors, nurses, and more generally more people which exceed the local need. We call that catastrophic event with limited effect. For example, should a truck with toxic products which goes outside the street in Paris, there will be an overflow of technical and medical means. So we won't have the necessity to stay on the scene. On the other hand, the same accident happening in a mountain valley with poor communications will bring to put the medical resources on the site and to stay on the site.
So stabilization, scoop and run, this depends about
on local conditions.
Local condition, local needs, and planning. Alors, regarding planning, General Garrigue, so we plan in all large cities for large events and including mass casualties. What are the most difficult, I would say, topics that you have to treat when you think about planning of mass casualties?
So the area of Paris is very specific. Paris represents about 12 million inhabitants, and it's a place where we can find 25% of the richest of France, and we have also all the airport, so the big railway, the train, the main station train. So it's very sensible for all the France, and so we have to be very careful about what happened in Paris. And of course, with 12 million of inhabitants, when there is an event, there is a mass casualty events. During the years of 90, we have what we call a red plan, which is a plan only for a conventional attempt, only one. And now, after London, after Madrid, we have to prepare severe attempts with hundreds of deceased and thousands of wounded. And it's a really action of war in the city. And we can't use the red plan before, and we have to prepare a military action on the field with, we hope.
Military action doesn't mean that you have a military resources only, no. But that means that you plan like military.
Yes, like the military concepts to choose between the light wounded and the heavy wounded. And the problem for us is to follow all the victims. When we have thousands and thousands of wounded persons, we need to have a device, global device, to follow exactly where they are. where we transport them to which hospital, and after there is also the judicial police. We try to find who is the
Yes.
attempt, what is the person, and so it's we need really a big device to organize a
So
mass
it's a-
casualty attempt.
It's a global concept, link the first responders, the medical doctors, the law enforcement agencies, and so on. That in order to cover the whole aspect
Yes.
of the rescue and operation. We will come back on those issues of concept and disaster medicine. But I would like to turn about the industry side, because of course to cover all these issues you need equipment. And so we have two suppliers. Maybe first of all, Mr. Wursban, could you explain us a little bit what Losberger is doing in this business?
Yes, of course. Lorsberger is already a long time in the business of shelters, tents, making a cover safety home. But we started already in the 90s actually with decontamination showers. A decontamination shower is a sort of spin-off of a safety shower, but then on a mobile basis, so you can easily take it with you. And then later, when these bigger terrorist attacks came, like 9/11, we concentrated on mass decontamination systems. And mass decontamination was done again in shelters. So we supply the complete package, and when you are talking about decontamination, then it should be on site, because you don't want to spread around the decontamination. Different from casualties, normal accident.
So decontamination, triage station. What are the new requirements regarding these issues from your customers that you have seen during the years?
Now, one of the biggest is the number of casualties. Whereas in the beginning, it was only for the fireman who came in with his fire suit, and then later on the people were concerned about a much bigger scale of incidents with a much bigger impact on the civilians.
So we'll come back on this issue of mass, because when we say mass casualties, we have to define what is mass, and maybe we will come back later on those issues. And for Renault Trucks, so what are you doing in this business? You mainly transport the casualties.
Well, that's true. Early entry action is in common with the military needs. It's a bit the same for mass casualties. What do you need? You need, well, by the way, a bit of homework for you to describe what we do. We transport. We can be able to be aero-transportable. That's why the doctor was speaking of that. We can try to transfer to any kind of risk with all these things. It's a small part of our range, a 3-brand range with the Velera of Akmat, for example, with all the trucks and armored vehicles from Renault Trucks Defense, and also from Power. So what is the problem? You have a problem of explosion. You need protection. You can take this range. You have a problem of terrorists. You will take the small armored vehicle. You have fireman problem. You can have rough terrain vehicles that will attack the problems from the center. You have more classic transportation problems with, for example, the problem of food, like we have had in Darfur.
So we have a view of one of your equipment on the screen.
Yes.
Different kind of ambulances. What is the request of the market today? Is more mobility in all field, or it's more mass transportation?
Well, the first thing is that we have more and more emergencies catastrophes. The rate of increase of such catastrophes, either weather, either terrorism, either technical problems like it was in Kosovo a few years ago, is pushing the market. All this range was not adapted to mass casualties a few years ago. More and more, we need to adapt the offer to this situation. What's happened? In fact, we have to work with partners because, for example, we are not specialists for chemicals. So we work with, for example, Nexter and BC or others, and we adapt with different solutions all what you can need, from analysis to evacuation, to all the sanitary aspects, including emergency surgery. And all our fleet, you have always the good answer to find a good solution.
I know we are going to come back on more technical aspect later on, but I would like to see what we think about when we speak about mass casualties, because we have, as we mentioned before, Red Plan. Red Plan was roughly 50, 60 casualties, which is up to 100, we will say, with a limited effects. I mean, not 100 AV casualties, but 100 casualties altogether, so maybe 10% of AV casualties and less. So that was the design of the 80 and 90 maybe. In the year 2000, after so 9/11, after London, Madrid that we mentioned before, on which scale we are thinking today? So, Doctor, what is your view on that?
My view should be that we cannot plan on a very comprehensive manner. So we need to be flexible and adaptive. That's the main issue. That's the first step. And the second step should be to adapt on time. I mean, the first responder should have to give a sort of ambient message, what happened and what is supposed to happen in a few hours. Then, in parallel to the increase of local responders and technical tools on site, we'll have to adapt on a real-time basis. And I would go back to what General Garrigue told. We have two major issues should a catastrophic event happen anywhere in the world. The first one will be identification. You probably saw on the TV the complaint of many people in the Philippines. I'm alive. How can my family know that I'm still alive? I'm not dead. And my husband, my son, my father, what happened with him? And as well as in big cities, we need to identify and to have a good traceability, to know where people are and in which condition they are. That's the first issue. And the second one would be to cope with people who witnessed the catastrophic event but are not directly implied. They are not injured, they are not intoxicated. But what to do with these people? They are in good health, so they will disturb health responders, and they will be rather deleterious. So there is a law enforcement dimension not to forget.
Okay, so when you say you must be adaptive and reactive, we can think about, but do we have a scale? We say 100, now do we say 1,000, do we say 5,000? What is the threshold where do you think a situation turn into
a real catastrophic event?
A real catastrophe, yes. Even when you are really over what you were thinking today. And this it's not especially in France, but in most of the democratic countries, developed countries, what are the threshold today?
This underlines the importance of planning. You know, you can push in a few hours this and this. I mean 10 doctors or 100 doctors or one doctor or no doctor and a nurse or a medic. That's planification. And you know the level at which you put the difference between a limited catastrophic event, which will be treated on time and on site, and a real catastrophic event. So there is a very big difference regarding what you told about Paris, where you can, within 1 hour, you can have more than 100 health people on site and technical people on site. And what happened on a very remote island, which whose telecommunications and ground communications had been broken by the tsunami or typhoon. So you have to plan regarding to your local means and your local condition, I mean geographic conditions. It depends. It depends on the extent of distance. For example, an helicopter won't fly over 200, 300 kilometers.
So, General, what when we used to say, Eisenhower was saying, plan is nothing, planning is everything. So when you plan something, what are the most difficult issues? Is the issue of transportation? Is the issue of communication? Or it's the issue of taking care of the people, of crowd control, of what are the most sensitive issues that you have to take care of?
I think the most difficult is the transportation, because about the wounded person, we try to make two kinds of wounded person. There is a light wounded. There is usual transportation to send them to hospital far from the attempts, and the heavy wounded, we send them to the hospital in Paris, for instance. And that's the most difficult. But we have a plan. We say that it's only a response of 2 or 3 hours after we need the reinforcement of all the other departments. We need a column of firefighter and a column of hospital, emergency medical service, because even in Paris, the
resources can be short at
yes,
some point.
Yes, and when we have more than 1,000 wounded, we can see during the summertime when there is some burnt person, the resources are small and smaller and smaller.
Especially in some specialties, medical specialties as well.
It's a European response sometimes.
So we see the planning and the escalation between the local, the regional, the national, the EU or international response level. So this requests also a lot of planning and interoperability. How do you work the issue of interoperability regarding these points in the industry?
That's a good question, because you have different age of vehicles a bit everywhere, including planes and other means. The first aspect of that is now industry is embedded in action. We sustain directly. Recently, the French army was in Mali. We were just on the rear to modify things during the primary move. So on that aspect, we have very often emergency actions at once, then emergency programs behind, because usually services, they have a limited number of things. And for huge catastrophe or huge human problems like in Darfur, they were needing 2,000 and 5,000 vehicles. And it was to provide them as quick as possible.
But it takes time.
It takes a few months. So you have always an early interaction with sustainment, with sometimes a few vehicles in stock, and then you sustain in the duration. And so the comparison between 20 years ahead from now and now is that we are really embedded in the action much more than before. And
so you are very close to your customers finally,
customer.
And you support the customer even on the field. That's something new.
And usually, when they feel that something is incoming, they make the warning order. Like
and that is true for the military, but is it true also for humanitarian and for civil defense?
Absolutely, it's the same aspect.
Or forces?
On mobility, on protection, on threats that are complicated threats with different aspects, it's a bit the same problematic. And you often use similar means. Planes are the same.
So you are following also your customer in the case of emergencies?
Yes, certainly. What we do is sometimes adding them with setting up the camp, the field camps, doing the maintenance on them. But we also have to follow up the customers, because the customers can vary. It can be the Ministry of Interior, it can be Ministry of Health and the Civil Protection. So for instance, following means also to define who is the one who is dealing with it. For instance, now it is difficult to follow who will need immediately, who is dealing with the shelters for the Philippines, for instance. We do have, of course, in all these years many contacts, but still then it is difficult to follow.
Yeah, because you have no stock. I mean, the industry today has no stock almost.
Most of the time, unfortunately, the industry has no stock. So, but they can ramp up quite quick.
Yes.
Once you have on the shelf equipment, then you can go fast. Of course, it depends on how complicated your needs are. If you want a commercial vehicle like this fourgon, it's quite easy because we produce some every day. So it's easy to produce in mass this kind of vehicle, put shelter on the rear and go. If you want something very specialized for chemical analysis, for example, that's another story.
No, yeah, of course. Maybe a few words about the state of the market. Do you believe that it's a market which is growing right now, or the aspect of civil protection, mass casualty, humanitarian assistance, or it's a flat market? I mean, more or less.
No, I think the market is still growing. People get more aware and want to respond to big catastrophes. So then I think also we have the developed countries and the less developed countries. I think also the BRIC countries are more want to respond to big disasters. So
do you
think the market is growing?
Okay. Do you see an increasing in the preparedness of specific events or large scale events? Also, I think especially like large events for sports events.
Yeah.
You know, we have the World Cup. We will have the Olympics. Do you have some specific return on that?
We have seen that in many countries. You have very often a kind of preparation step. Authorities like Health Department, Ministry of Interior, they think they may have a big problem somewhere, like Olympic Games or something like that. In that case, they purchase a few things for protection, for health. They prepare things. They have limited budget. They try to have a self-sufficient action. And then you have the after-action equipment, after a catastrophe. That's another story. Then you must react quick and try to propose solutions as quick as possible. So we have some programs with, for example, the French Gendarmerie. We have specialized trucks which are able to analyze in devastated industrial areas some dangerous stuff. This is a preparatory programs. You have a few units, very specialized vehicles. On the other hand, when you have humanitarian problem anywhere in the world, they send what they have, and afterwards, in the coming weeks, they try to improve the system.
And also sometimes when you project those equipments, you burn them during the.
That's happened.
And so you have to recomplete.
Exactly.
Do you think that the EU, it's a both question, is doing enough for disaster assistance, or do you have some specific project in terms of research or in terms of
procurement? Our customers are ministries, states. They put in common some means, like planes, because it's often the most rare thing. But that said, there is not really a huge project on that. They don't centralize the purchase like NATO can do in some cases. So what we can say about interoperability, there is only one solution: to sell our products everywhere.
It's a good remark. So maybe we are going to end this talks in a few minutes. Maybe I would like to do a last roundtable on the issue of how do you see the future of mass casualty situation? What do you expect in the future to come, and on what trends we are now?
Well, I believe the main issue will be identification and follow-up of all casualties. That's, in my opinion, will be the main issue.
So the link between finally the web, the new technology of communication, yes, and the field.
Yes, from on the field, the first contact with any people practicing rescue, with an identification which will be safe enough to ensure a follow-up from the field to the discharge from the hospital, and to know on real time how many, in which state, where the casualties are. That's in my mind, the first issue. The second one will be, as you told us, modularity. I mean, with any comprehensive and multi-role equipment, which will allow us to adapt on the local situation and to move as quick as possible, including air transportation and telecommunication. And telecommunication would be the second issue to come. And the third one will be crowd control. What should we do with people which witnessed the event but are not implied, are not injured? I believe these three directions will be the future of catastrophic events.
It's kind of issue that you put in the planning as well, and especially the communication issue?
Yes, and especially the communication for the population. And what we saw during Sunday, they use the social networks for the communication for the population, and I think for that we need a new strategy to use this kind of communication for the information.
So if I listen to those two gentlemen, you have to be connected with your ambulance and with your tent.
The headquarter vehicle is on the bus with the Thales equipment embedded, and it's up to you to visit it. It will be a coordination center for police or any ministry to be able to cope with all these constraints you were describing.
So the issue of communication, of interoperability are really major for you as well?
Yes, I think for sure, yeah. What I also think is that the market will become more mature, where we now have that every different country has a different concept of its hospital or of its decontamination system. I think after years now, when they are using it, there will be more and more. Only the specialist will come up, and there will be a more simple one concept instead of lots of different ideas and modules.
So modulars and one concept to reach a larger scale of intervention.
Yeah, not so many different concepts. Products. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all. We are going to end this second talk show in English. For the English speakers and English listeners, I would say that we will meet at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon on the issue of CBRN and illicit drugs detections. What are the new technologies? And before that, for those who understand French, we will meet at 2 o'clock for a talk show of disasters and local communities. So 2 o'clock. Thank you to be with us, and see you soon. Bye-bye.